Have you ever wondered about all that graffiti you see in Barcelona? What does it mean? And more importantly, why is there so much of it? Today, I'm joining Luke, a local street art expert and owner at Art Space Tours. Together, we're going to take a deep dive into the history and evolution of graffiti in Barcelona and answer all those burning questions about the city's iconic street art scene. Who's behind these pieces, what they represent, and how Barcelona became such a canvas for creativity. Get ready, because we're going to see Barcelona's streets in a whole new way. All right, there he is.
Patrick Guide, Barcelona.
Luke, my man, thank you very much. So we're doing some street art today, huh?
We are indeed.
All right, where are we?
So right now we're in front of the mucb, which is the Museum of Contemporary Art. And that's here in the center of Raval. Raval is the neighborhood that's just off of Las Ramblas. And this is probably the coolest neighborhood in town.
All right, so you brought me into the Raval. Why the Raval?
Well, I mean, the Raval is a concentration of so much different art, not just street art. I mean, right now in this plaza where we're standing at the moment, we've got pieces by the One Up crew, the most important crew in Europe. Got this really cool rainbow piece by Mais Amor. We've got paste ups by the Barcelona paste up crew. And then, like I say, not just street art. We've got public sculptures by Eduardo Chivida, one of the most important Spanish sculptures in history. We've got Anthony Tapias. And also in the Raval, you don't just see the street art, you're going to see loads of skateboarders all over the place, and that kind of urban culture that is so integrated into graffiti and street art culture.
All right, so I got to ask as well, is it really as dangerous as they say?
Well, no, I mean, I'm a boy that grew up in Johannesburg, so for me this place is nothing. But no, as long as you don't find yourself here alone at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you might find some more interesting characters. But during the day, the Raval is chill, man.
So I think at 10:30 on a Tuesday morning is okay.
Yeah, we're gonna be fine. I'll look after you.
So I gotta ask, and I think it's the question that I get all the time by everyone that comes in, is all of this legal?
Is it legal? There's no real simple answer to that, because some of it is legal and some of it is not legal. I would say surprisingly it is largely not legal, but then there's a little bit of grey area in between. You take this place that we're at the moment, this is a random plaza, you're going to see some kids playing basketball over here, and this is not explicitly sanctioned by the government, but it is a place where artists are left alone to paint. But then while you're walking along, you're going to see loads of the shutters are generally full of tags and spray paint, and the walls are generally clean. It's going to lead you to think we've got the most considerate vandals in town, but that's a simple reason, because the walls are cleaned by the government, and also you pay higher fines if you're painting on the walls, whereas the doors and shutters are the owner of the building or the owner of the establishment's prerogative to clean. And so that's where you'll have either artists that are invited to paint, or just artists or graffiti writers or vandals that are just painting on top of those shutters. So what I think is really cool and rich about the Barcelona scene is that blending between illegal graffiti and legal street art and everything in between.
And this is why I have Luke here with me today, to get a better idea about this complex topic, because I always get asked about the amount of graffiti in the city. While it's easy to notice the tags along the walls, I'm curious about the bigger picture, the street art, the murals, how the people of Barcelona view this, and where we draw the line between creating art and committing vandalism.
So this is the piece that I was telling you about, that's one of the most important pieces of street art that we have in Barcelona, signed by none other than Keith Haring, painted originally in 1989. Now it's worth saying this is actually a copy of the original that he painted, but it is an exact copy painted in the same neighborhood, and so it's 99% as good as the real thing. And it says the words, "Todos juntos podemos parar el SIDA, all together we can stop AIDS." And this was 1 year after Keith was actually diagnosed with AIDS, started traveling around the whole world doing AIDS awareness, activism, artivism. And so that's why the different symbols that are over here all refer to AIDS in that time. And then I'm going to point something out to you, and that's the reason why you employed me to come and show you around today, Patrick. Come and take a look at this cool little detail here. So this is a French artist, Tony Brix, from Paris, I believe, and he does these Lego portraits of different figures. So he did this portrait of Keith Haring that he's put here next to the mural. I believe without permission.
And what about this? I've always seen it and never known what it is.
Oh, yes. One of my favorite contemporary artists. I mean, this is for me one of the coolest examples of what you see in Barcelona that I love. So you got all of the graffiti on the ground floor. And then if you look higher up, you've got this public tea by one of the most important Spanish sculptors, Eduardo Chillida. And it's these shapes that are a complement to the architecture of the Contemporary Art Museum of the mucb. So Richard Meyer, the American architect, did this piece in the 1990s in Barcelona. And then when Chillida was requested to do his piece, he wanted to do something that would integrate this contemporary architecture into this more antique neighborhood. And so that's what his symbols are, kind of like a rhyme of the mucb building.
You learn something new every day. So the legal issue doesn't always seem to be an easy question to answer. Legalities aside, why is there so much of it?
So that's got to do a little bit with the history of graffiti in Barcelona. So around the world in the late 1970s, early 1980s is when we see the rise of the graffiti phenomenon alongside hip-hop culture, b-boy culture. This is in New York City, Philadelphia. So it's in the 1980s that it arrives here in Europe. So at that time, the laws in Barcelona were very lenient, okay? So we started to see this new counterculture that was rising in Barcelona. The laws were pretty lenient. And also you got to bear in mind that Spain was under a dictatorship up until 1975. So there were these repressed youths that wanted to express themselves, that felt like they needed to be heard. So you had the perfect mix of things to come together for people to use this new art movement to express themselves. And then the key was in the 1990s when something called Montana Cans was founded. Have you heard of Montana Cans?
I have. There's one right up here, isn't there?
There is one indeed. Montana Cans was one of the first, if not the first, spray paint brand directed towards writers, graffiti artists. So previously artists would have been using industrial spray paint, but Montana Cans were the first guys that thought, hey, let's come out with new colors, with new different nozzles, different pressures, so that artists themselves actually have the tools to create. They were the first ones in Europe, so people were traveling from all around Europe to Barcelona. You had crews coming from Germany, from Italy, and while they were here, they were painting. And so artists will speak about this golden age in which the laws were low, the paint was easy to come by, and so it just exploded onto the scene. So from the 90s until the early 2000s, until the government decided to change its mind.
What Luke is talking about isn't just about art anymore. It's become one of Barcelona's top priorities. The city's mayor, Jaume Collboni, has taken on graffiti in a big way. Barcelona used to spend around 4 million euros a year cleaning up the graffiti and tags around the city, but now that budget is predicted to climb to 16 million euros for 2024 and 2025 alone. And the penalties? They've gone up too. Fines that were once 300 euros now start at 500. And if you tag a building of cultural patrimony, you could face a 600 euro fine.
And then Patrick, this is something that you're going to see all over the walls. And for me, one of the coolest elements of the more contemporary graffiti culture, that's in the paste ups. When you want to try and do something illegal, you want to do it as quickly and quietly as possible. So these artists are producing pieces in their studio. They're going to come out with a whole lot of pieces and they're going to come and stick it on the wall. And something that's really cool is that when one or two artists put up pieces, it becomes like a magnet that more and more artists will stick it up. And so you've got this kind of urban gallery with all international artists that have pasted up their pieces on the wall. And then everything from more like serious political statements, Zulu Fashion Week over here with the Zulu tribes people that have got the Louis Vuitton and the Chanel logos that are obviously signs of capitalism, and then just more fun, playful kind of things. And so there's a whole range of everything from like the serious to the more fun and less serious.
All right, so taking a look at all of this, and when I walk around, see all of these different things, it's got to change quite a lot, right?
Oh yeah, all the time.
And so, I mean, I guess my question is, doing tours, how hard is it for you to keep up with it?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's what makes it exciting, eh? Every single tour, you might be so excited to show off this one piece, and then it's been painted over, and then you get excited because you see things that you didn't know were there. So yeah, you got to stay on top of your game with that. But that's what's beautiful about it. It's always changing. It's ephemeral. Then in the same line as the paste ups is when artists are doing things that isn't just on paper. They're starting to do things on ceramic, on mirrors, on cans. You're going to see these guys all over the place. They're super popular. This is this Catalan couple, Melata. Actually started off writing each other love messages on old recycled cans. And it's developed into these cool, positive kind of messages, like this one over here on the old spray cans, Street Fighters. And so artists are moving away from vandalism, destroying public property, and creating things in their studio, adding value and depth and texture to the street. And so it's just so cool the way the whole thing is evolving.
And what do you think the kind of idea from the people that live here is when they see things like this compared to maybe the graffiti that we've seen as well?
This is definitely going to be a lot more well received by almost everybody, eh? At the end of the day, people generally are still not loving the tags, like the names that are spray painted on the walls, but these cool, interesting, kind of playful things are generally speaking a lot more well received.
All right, so early 2000s, we got some new laws come in. What's the change?
So it's not clear to me what causes the change, but the government has an about face that all of a sudden all forms of art becomes illegal. So that's the tags as well as the beautiful, more artistic murals. So what happens is that they start buffing over everything, tags and beautiful stuff. The thing is that the tag artists are the ones that don't care about the laws. So they're the ones that are going to keep on painting. They're the ones that are inspired by the laws. And so that's why you've got so much tags and so much graffiti. And then it's forced the more street art, mural, pretty kind of stuff into more concentrated spaces. So where I want to take you next is a super cool space. That's the Three Chimneys Park.
Okay.
And that's a legal graffiti spot. And then I'm going to show you about some really interesting solutions that artists have found of how to get up their art, even though it might not necessarily be sanctioned by the government.
But as we made our way to the Three Chimneys Park, Luke spotted a side street he knew was packed with incredible artwork, a perfect spot to get a feel for Barcelona's street art scene. But when we arrived, all the art had already been covered up. A new team of street cleaners had beaten us to it, a clear sign of the city's renewed efforts to clean up the streets.
And lo and behold, it's all been painted over.
Doesn't look like too much over here, does it?
Patrick, I assure you there used to be some really cool pieces here. Beautiful, like painted calligraphy and words. And now it is the color of dull.
Well, you can see like some of the stuff from under it.
Check it out.
Like right in there.
Alas.
You have to take your word for it. It looks like we're making up for that lack of the art down the stairs there.
At least this hasn't been touched, but this is now sanctioned. This is now legal pieces dedicated to hip hop culture.
We got the Bronx, East New York. So Luke, I'm glad you brought me over here. This is cool. I haven't seen really down into this street. I haven't been down here in a while, but you've also brought me into probably one of my least favorite parts of Barcelona.
Well, I'll tell you something pretty cool about the pigeon in the street art culture in the Raval. So in Spanish, as you well know, the word paloma is both dove and pigeon. And so when artists want to paint the dove piece, they tend to paint the pigeon because that's the more urban Raval kind of dove.
To be honest with you, that's really cool, but I still don't like them. Who would have thought that my biggest challenge in the Raval would be navigating through a pigeon park? But we made it through safely and crossed Parallel Avenue to reach the famous Three Chimneys Park. Here, Luke wanted to show me one of the rare legal spaces for street art in the city, a place where artists can showcase their work without fear of it being wiped away. By the government, that is.
So Patrick, at the moment I've brought you to one of the sacred homes of street art culture here in Barcelona. This is the Garden of the Three Chimneys. The Three Chimneys over there were from an old power plant in the late 1800s, and they kept it for its architectural heritage. And this is a park where it's a complete free-for-all to come and paint.
So what do you mean it's a free-for-all? This is one of those spots where it's legal to paint?
Yeah, exactly. So when the government started banning the painting everywhere, a couple of associations pushed that they created spaces where people could come and paint. Now originally when they started this, it was quite an official thing where you had to register and they would give you permission to come and paint, and there were kind of rules around it. But we know rules and graffiti aren't really good friends. So it just became a free-for-all that anybody of any skill level can just come and paint here. So you're going to see some really high quality guys like that Scottish crew that we just bumped into, next to some guys that are just learning how to paint.
So this is, when you were talking about signing up, this is where they used to have that app, right? Or was it Free Walls or something?
Free Walls, murals, exactly, organized by Raval, who's the same guys that run this. And so they created the app where you would submit your portfolio and then you could come and paint. But like I say, now it's turned into a bit of a free-for-all, which begs the question, how do you know what you can paint on top of, and how do you know what you can't? In this world, it's kind of like when you paint something, you know it might last for 24 hours. I've seen some outstanding international artists paint some really cool things. It's gone in one day. But that's the beauty of it, because once again, you can come here every single week and you're going to see something new, colorful, fresh every single time.
As Luke pointed out, one of the coolest aspects of the Three Chimneys Park is the ever-changing reality of its walls. Some murals last for days, others just hours or even minutes. When we arrived, we saw a group of Scottish artists taking advantage of the space, adding their own work to the mix. They were even kind enough to stop and chat with us, giving us a glimpse into how they see Barcelona and its art scene. Yeah, so what kind of called you over here to Barcelona to paint?
Well, it's kind of mainly the weather. But it's not looking too great today, but yeah, the weather's been absolutely fine the past few days. And the diversity in artwork, the legal areas, yeah, it's just, there's so much places to paint compared to back home. Kind of less trouble. Yeah, that's kind of it, yeah.
And what do you feel about the fact that the stuff you're painting today might not be here tomorrow?
Well, yeah, that's
part of the game,
yeah, that's something we live with all the time. Yeah, it's kind of mostly half the fun. Yeah.
Then come and check this out. This space is now another legal space. It's called the Arnau Gallery. It gets the name because this was the old Arnau Theatre, and this is organized by one of the coolest associations, Street Art Barcelona. Shout out to Antoine. He is trying to use street art to draw attention to things that need attention in the community. Like the fact that this theatre needs to be refurbished. So he's using the art to draw public attention towards this project successfully.
And are there other types of artwork like this around the city?
There are other similar things, but what's really cool about this is that every month a new established artist is invited. So you're going to see international and local artists that are coming and leaving some of the coolest, most detailed, colorful pieces on the Arnau Gallery.
One of the things that I love about this is that when I come by, it seems like every single time it's something different. And the end caps here, this is the one that I noticed the other day. It's super realistic, but I thought that's not a good looking dude.
I mean, this is one of the best pieces you're ever going to see in the city. Albert Bonnet took a couple of days to paint this hyper-realistic piece. The mayor of Barcelona himself came to come and check this out. And you think it's not a good-looking dude? I got news for you. That's a woman.
My respects, madam. So I got one more question, because we've been talking so much about just the Raval neighborhood in itself. Does the community, does the neighborhood as a whole get involved in the art and back it?
I mean, that's a really great question. the same guy that organizes the Arnau Gallery, organized this festival called the Raval. And this is a great example of it. So over here you see the text that says Un barri per a tothom, which is Catalan for a neighborhood for everybody. One of the characteristics of the Raval is that this is the most multicultural neighborhood. So take a look at the people that are depicted. Different people, different ethnicities, different age groups. That's what the Raval is all about. And so when he had this project, he got the community involved. I mean, there's even a painting of a famous character that's just the president of a local neighborhood association. And they painted him just because everybody loves him. And so absolutely, the community started to get integrated.
So Luke, this is that president you were mentioning, right?
The very same. This is Ramon. And so this is a perfect example of how the community gets involved in the art. And this is going to be the last piece that I can show you today, Patrick, because I've actually got to get running because I've got a street art tour to go and do.
Oh, we don't want to keep you from that, but if anybody wants to join one of your tours, how can they find you?
Absolutely, it's really simple. The website is artspacetours, all one word, .com. And our Instagram is artspace_tours. All of the information is on there. Tours are running every day. Come and check it out. We're always going to have something new to show you.
All right, really appreciate it.
Cool, my brother.
Thanks a lot.
Take care, man.
After spending the day with Luke, I've gained a new appreciation not only for the artistry behind street art, but also for the complexity of the issue and the debates of how the city should handle it. I always love learning more and more about Barcelona, and I feel like now I can answer those questions about street art a little bit better when they come up. But if you want to experience the world of street art and see these places for yourself, click the link below to join a tour with Luke and Artspace Tours. And now I'll let the master leave you with some final words to close this one out.
So just a final note on something to think about, and that's that urban art, graffiti, street art is like the defining art movement of our time. Just like you look back and you check out pop art and you check out Impressionism, urban art is the art movement of our time. Banksy is the Picasso of our generation. And so it's just a cool thing to think about, and how the development of street art is moving away from vandalism and moving into a much more broad style of colorful, cool art.